Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather to discuss a pivotal moment in history, the emergence of Christianity, and to argue the proposition that this major world religion arose in the year 70. As we embark on this intellectual journey, let us consider the evidence with a critical eye and an open mind. This discussion will take the form of a debate between opposing sides. The first speaker for the affirmative is Daniel. Daniel, please make your opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, the year 70 AD is not merely a date. It represents a significant turning point in the ancient world. It was the year when the Second Temple in Jerusalem was destroyed, an event that had profound implications for the Jewish people and the nascent Christian movement. It is my contention that this cataclysmic event served as a catalyst for the formation and spread of Christianity. Firstly, let us consider the sociological factors that contribute to the birth of a religion. Religions do not arise in a vacuum. They are born out of social, political, and cultural upheavals, as we see, for example, in Islam. In AD 70, the Jewish-Roman wars culminated in a disaster for the Jewish people, leading to a diaspora that scattered communities across the Roman Empire. This dispersion created fertile ground for new ideas and beliefs to take root, including those of Christianity. Pliny the Younger, writing in approximately 110 CE, refers to Christians and their practices, indicating that by this time Christianity was already recognized as a distinct religious identity. If we consider the testimonies of apostates mentioned by Pliny, who had abandoned Christianity 20 years prior, we are taken back to around 90 CE, tantalizingly close to our proposed date of the year 70. By examining the history of other religions, we see that major societal disruptions often precede the rise of religious movements. Christianity, with its message of hope and salvation, would have resonated deeply with a population recovering from the trauma of war and loss. The argument that Christianity arose as a fully formed religion at the time of Jesus' ministry is fraught with difficulties. The historical record from this period is sparse, and the Gospels themselves were written decades after the events they describe. It is more plausible that the religion we now know as Christianity was shaped in the aftermath of the temple's destruction, as communities sought to make sense of their place in a changing world. In conclusion, the proposition that Christianity arose in AD 70 is supported by sociological insights, historical evidence, and logical reasoning. As we delve deeper into this debate, I urge you to consider the weight of the evidence and the power of the arguments presented.
Thank you, Daniel. Now for the opening statement for the opposing side. Paula, will you please address the audience?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to engage in this thought-provoking debate on the origins of Christianity. The proposition before us suggests that Christianity arose in the year 70, a claim that, while intriguing, does not withstand the scrutiny of historical evidence and scholarly analysis. To argue against this proposition, we must first acknowledge the complexity of religious development and the multifaceted nature of early Christian history. Christianity, as we understand it, was not the product of a single event or moment, but rather a gradual evolution of beliefs and practices over time. While the event of the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem was undoubtedly significant, it is overly simplistic to claim that it marked the birth of Christianity. Historical records and scholarly research suggest that the roots of Christianity were already taking shape well before the temple's destruction. The writings of the New Testament, particularly the epistles of Paul, provide evidence of Christian communities and beliefs that predate 70 CE. Paul's letters, which are among the earliest Christian documents, were written in the 50s and 60s, indicating that the foundational elements of Christian doctrine were already being established. Furthermore, the Gospels, which recount the life and teachings of Jesus, were composed based on oral traditions and earlier texts that likely originated before the year 70. While the exact dates of their authorship are debated, the consensus among scholars is that they reflect a tradition that began with Jesus' ministry in the early 1st century. It is also important to consider the role of Jesus himself in the formation of Christianity. The historical Jesus, whose life and teachings inspired the movement, lived and preached in the decades prior to AD 70. To suggest that Christianity arose only after the temple's destruction is to overlook the impact of his figure and message, which had already begun to spread throughout the region. In addition, the argument that Christianity arose as a response to the temple's destruction fails to account for the diversity of early Christian thought. The first century saw a wide array of beliefs and practices among Jesus' followers, which cannot be neatly encapsulated by a single event. In conclusion, while the events of 70 CE may have influenced the development of Christianity, they did not mark its inception. The religion that would come to be known as Christianity was the result of a complex interplay of historical, social, and theological factors that began long before the temple fell. As we proceed with this debate, I invite you to consider the breadth of evidence that points to a more nuanced understanding of Christian origins.
Thank you, Paula. Daniel, you now have an opportunity to respond.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue this debate, it is crucial to build upon the foundation laid by my opening speech. The proposition that Christianity arose in AD 70 is not only plausible but also supported by a confluence of historical evidence and sociological theory. Let us revisit the year 70, a year marked by the destruction of Herod's magnificent temple, an event that sent shockwaves through the Jewish community and beyond. Titus also ordered the killing of the priests. It is within this context of upheaval and transformation that Christianity found its distinct voice. The fall of the temple was not just a physical demolition, but also a symbolic disintegration of old beliefs, paving the way for new religious paradigms to emerge. The sociological perspective provides us with a lens to understand how religions crystallize during times of social stress. When traditional structures collapse, people seek solace in new spiritual frameworks. Christianity, with its promise of salvation and a new covenant, offered a beacon of hope amidst the chaos of the Roman-Jewish conflict. Moreover, the absence of any mention of Jesus or Christians in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which date back to the period before AD 70, suggests that Christianity had not yet emerged as a recognizable entity. This aligns with the notion that the religion gained its identity and momentum post-temple destruction. Graffiti found in Pompeii, which was buried under volcanic ash in 79 CE, hints at the presence of Christian beliefs on the Italian peninsula just a few years after the year 70. This graffiti, while not conclusive on its own, contributes to the mosaic of evidence pointing towards the rise of Christianity in this critical period. In conclusion, the proposition that Christianity arose in the year 70 stands on solid ground. It is a hypothesis supported by the convergence of sociological insights and historical data. As we proceed with this debate, let us remember that history is often a puzzle, and it is through the careful examination of each piece that we come closer to understanding the full picture.
Thank you, Daniel. Paula, please take the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we reconvene in this debate, it is essential to further articulate the stance of the negative camp regarding the proposition that Christianity arose in 70 CE. The evidence against this proposition is robust and multifaceted, and it is my task to present it to you with clarity. Firstly, the historical record provides substantial evidence of Christian activity prior to AD 70. The writings of Paul the Apostle, for example, are dated to the 50s and 60s, well before the destruction of the sacred edifice. These documents reflect a developed Christian theology and a network of communities that were already practicing the faith. Moreover, the Gospels, which are the cornerstone of Christian doctrine, are based on oral traditions that predate the year 70. While the exact dates of their composition are debated, the scholarly consensus is that they were written based on earlier sources that originated during the life of Jesus. It is also important to consider the diversity of early Christian thought. The first century was a period of rich theological development, with various interpretations of Jesus' teachings. This diversity is indicative of a movement that had been growing and evolving over time, not one that suddenly emerged in AD 70. Additionally, the argument that Christianity arose as a direct response to the temple's destruction is undermined by the fact that the Christian movement contains relatively few allusions to this event. If the year 70 were truly the birth year of Christianity, one would expect more explicit references to the fall of Jerusalem in the early Christian literature. Furthermore, the Dead Sea Scrolls, which contain no mention of Jesus or Christians, provide a snapshot of Jewish religious thought up to the first century. The absence of Christian references in these texts suggests that Christianity was already distinct from Judaism before the temple's destruction. In conclusion, the proposition that Christianity arose in the year 70 is not supported by the preponderance of historical evidence. Christianity's roots can be traced back to the teachings of Jesus in the early communities that followed him, long before the events of that fateful year. As we delve deeper into this debate, let us remain guided by the historical facts and the weight of scholarly research.
Thanks, Paula. Daniel, please present your closing statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we draw this debate to a close, it is imperative that we revisit the core of the affirmative argument and address the points raised by the opposing camp. The proposition that Christianity arose in AD 70 is not only a reasonable conclusion based on historical evidence, but also a compelling narrative that aligns with sociological patterns observed in the emergence of religions. The negative camp has presented arguments suggesting that Christianity's roots predate the year 70, citing the epistles of Paul and the oral traditions that informed the Gospels. However, no evidence has been presented to support these claims. By definition, undocumented oral traditions are impossible to verify. Furthermore, the Epistle of Barnabas, long regarded as genuine by the early church, mentions the desecration of the holy site, and Barnabas was, according to all accounts, one of Paul's co-workers. Who was the religious leader responsible for the ideas that underpinned Christianity? To posit that it must have been Jesus is to gloss over the enormous impact that the Apostle Paul had, as witness his prolific corpus of letters written to the churches and individual Christians. Furthermore, Jerome quite specifically places Paul's career after the Roman military operation in Galilee, which occurred a few years prior to the catastrophe of AD 70. The events of the year 70 provided the impetus for religious transformation, as the fall of the temple signified a break from traditional Judaism and the need for a new spiritual identity. The negative camp's reliance on the diversity of early Christian thought as evidence against the AD 70 proposition fails to consider that such diversity is characteristic of a religion in the process of formation. This process can be quite rapid. The destruction of the temple acted as an energizing agent that galvanized the religious-minded into action. All religions are invented by us. Some are more popular than others. From past history, we see that successful ones develop and organize rapidly. The religion of Joseph Smith in 1830 did just that, and despite some setbacks, Mormonism was established within just 12 months. The negative camp's argument that the early Christian literature contains few allusions to the fall of Jerusalem overlooks the fact that the formative texts of Christianity were shaped in the very context of the temple's fate, even if not explicitly mentioned. The trauma of this event is embedded in Christian narrative and theology. The law of Moses was, according to Paul, ended, and the Jews were punished for slaying their Messiah. Psychologically, traumatic events are often suppressed in discourse, as their recall elicits feelings of shame, defeat, and disappointment. In summary, the affirmative position maintains that the year 70 marks a significant turning point in the development of Christianity. It was a year of social upheaval, a year that demanded new answers to spiritual questions, and a year that witnessed the birth of a religion that would change the course of history. The evidence, both direct and circumstantial, points to this year as a plausible and indeed likely moment for Christianity to have arisen as a distinct and recognizable entity. It is the year when the confluence of historical events, social conditions, and theological developments coalesced to give birth to Christianity as we know it today.
As per the rules of debate, the opposing side has the final say. Paula.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude this debate, it is crucial to address the affirmative position's arguments and reinforce the strength of the negative stance. The claim that Christianity arose in the year 70 is a hypothesis that, while intriguing, does not hold up against the scrutiny of historical evidence and scholarly consensus. The affirmative side has posited that the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE was a catalyst for the formation of Christianity. However, this view overlooks the substantial body of evidence indicating that Christian beliefs and practices were already in place well before this event. The writings of Paul the Apostle, the earliest Christian documents, predate the year 70 and demonstrate a developed theology and established communities of believers. Furthermore, the Gospels, which form the bedrock of Christian doctrine, are based on traditions that can be traced back to the life and teachings of Jesus himself, decades before the temple's destruction. This continuity of tradition underscores the gradual evolution of Christianity from its inception during Jesus' ministry to its later development. The affirmative camp has also suggested that the absence of explicit references to the fall of Jerusalem in early Christian literature supports their proposition. However, this argument fails to recognize that the formative texts of Christianity were shaped by the broader context of the times, including the socio-political landscape of the Roman Empire, rather than a single event. Moreover, the claim that Christianity crystallized as a distinct religion only after AD 70 is challenged by the diversity of early Christian thought. This diversity reflects a movement that was already active and growing, not one that suddenly emerged from the ashes of the Second Temple. In summary, the negative position maintains that Christianity did not arise in the year 70, but had its roots in the teachings of Jesus and the early communities that followed him. The religion that would become known as Christianity was the result of a complex interplay of historical, social, and theological factors that began long before the temple fell.
Thank you, Paula and Daniel. As we reflect on the arguments presented today, let us remember that historical questions can rarely be decided with certainty. The most we can hope for is a degree of probability. Yes, the emergence of Christianity was a process, but how rapid was that process? I trust you have enjoyed this debate and leave it up to you, the audience, to decide the winner. Is the proposition likely or unlikely? Is it more likely that Christianity arose as the unintended consequence of a Roman military campaign in Judea in the year 70? Or did it arise, as most people believe, 40 years earlier, through the preaching of a sage from Galilee?